My name is Christopher Greggs. I'm a poet, a hip hop recording artist, and a designer and an educator. Um, I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Long Island, lived in Harlem for 6 years. Been traveling around the East Coast and other parts of the country, so I'm kind of mobile. What drives my work is trauma and the role we play as trauma as far as the narratives we bring. Specifically, what I'm really inspired is deconstructing toxic masculinity, providing a new theoretical framework through which we can understand manhood. For me, the watering hole is so many different things. I found out about the watering hole when going to Kalu, and Bobby Francis recommended this as a space that was open in addition to spaces like Kave Kanam. And when I arrived, I really didn't have much of a kind of expectation, kind of running it through it. I was really just going off the base of the word of a mentor and a writer I really respected. But when I came here, I feel like it was everything that I was missing in that way. And not that those spaces lacked anything, but this was providing me with a combination of community, humility, and just rigor. The faculty and the facilitators here are some of the most important, writers to me, and I think the most important writers in American letters come here and descend and give their time and their energy to young black writers, or just black writers of any age. Actually, this is a very intergenerational group, and in that way, we have people coming from, what's called page or the stage or whatever, but all that kind of falls away once we're here. It's all about the craft and an opportunity to be the best writers we can be. No difference. It means family. It means I get to come through and see my people, and I was just saying this the other day, but each year, each space I occupy tends to be less and less diverse with people of color. And when I'm here, it's like I'm coming home to family. I think Dan S. Smith described this as a holiday, and it definitely started to feel like a holiday. It's between, Christmas, the New Year, and all these incredible people and writers. We descend, we talk shit, we catch up, but we're writing some poems, and the work stands. And then we're sitting with people like, Evie Shockey, Terrence Hayes, Philip B. Williams, Francine Harris, Bettina Judd. Then people just come through. Patricia Smith may just come through to say what's up. Jericho Brown come through to say hey. It's all at the same time kind of casual, but when you're in the classroom, it's a whole nother animal. And people are there to meet you where you are. Nobody's flexing their degrees, their MFAs. It's all about craft and bridging connections and opportunities and craft to writers with a lot of promise. And I think those writers are everyone that's here. Well, Watering Hole is important because it's a space for writers of color. And I think it's important for writers of color dealing with everything they have to do on a daily basis to have a space in which they don't feel the need to have to explain themselves or defend their work, not necessarily because there's something missing craft-wise, but because there's a misunderstanding or inability to understand what's going on as far as from a kind of a cultural perspective. So I think that's why it's really important. What makes it unique is I think a lot of other spaces are kind of geared toward what are called page poets. And I think the split between, not that I believe in this, but page and stage, I think kind of operates in a very socioeconomic, racist, imperialistic, colonial tradition, and saying that there are only certain ways to which art can be accepted, and who gets to determine what can fit within the spectrum of American letters, I think can be a very oppressive act. So when you come to the Watering Hole, there is no page, there is no stage. There's one tradition, and that tradition is poetry. And in that way, everyone is humble, because I think we're all coming with our own perceived notions of what poetry is, what it is, what spaces in poetry we belong in, what spaces we don't. And a big part of the work that Monifa and Candace are doing, the faculty members rather, are doing, is just saying, no, this is one tradition, and we're here to learn from each other. And that, I think, keeps the space pure and honest and inclusive to writers in ways that we just don't see in other spaces. My favorite part of the treat, the nerd in me is I get to sit at the feet and, crack jokes, Philip B. Williams, Terrence Hayes, talking shit, Dan S. Smith, keeping us honest in the work and in the craft. but then you're showing up at the spades table to collect some names, try to collect some fades if you can. And I think that community, like being able to sit in the totality and the risk and the heaviness of what we write in workshop, and then to flip around and say, talk some mess, at the spades table, to kind of lean on each other and talk about things that happen in real life, games, game plans for the future. I think that's like really important. So my favorite moments is kind of that duality. Other places, like we're here for the work, and once workshop is over, I'll see you tomorrow morning at X a.m. But here, it's a rolling communion. There is no separation of spaces when you're in workshop and when you're having lunch, when you're having breakfast. And I think that's really important and vital. And so there's a continuity of care and continuity of craft, and everything's kind of coming back to this lifestyle, to this one tradition. Oh, like I said before, I really think the distinction between spoken word and page poetry, I think it's an exercise of oppression. I think, the first poets in every culture, were pre-written, right? So we're in it begins as a spoken tradition. Poetry is meant to be heard, but I think when you think about the delineation between the two, I think that isn't something that writers of color decided. I think that was something that was a choice that was decided, and as Americans, entering into a space of American letters, we have to kind of push back against a canon and a tradition that values, traditionally white cis-het voices, male voices, and so in that way, I think anything that's revolutionary, like spoken word, or spoken word, is threatening to that system, to how that's laid out. So I think having those two things together and then saying, pulling it back and saying, this separation between us isn't something that we decided. This is something that was decided for us, or something that someone tried to decide for us. So let's unpack that. This is one tradition, and it's a poetic tradition. It's an honest tradition. It's a black tradition, a black Southern tradition, a POC tradition, and let's get that out. Let's free ourselves of that preconceived notion. Just be about the work. And so it's not about flexing jargon. It's not the MFAs versus the people with cup seed trophies under their belts. It's all about you're all here to learn, because we write poems, and that's all we do, regardless of where you read those poems, how you write those poems, who your community is. We're here because we write poems, and it's one tradition. My name is Christopher Greggs. You can find me on Instagram at Greggs Name, and my collective, Know Your Name, Know Your Worth, Non-Applicable Media Empire at Name Your World on Instagram. Talk to me.